The man was a highly respected scholar, yet his wife betrayed him. And when she betrayed him, he didn't expose her on the spot. Instead, he planned the most ruthless punishment. Walter demanded that Kitty accompany him to Matanfu in China for a research project. At that time, the region was in the midst of a deadly cholera outbreak. Hearing this, Kitty felt as if he was pushing her into a corner, so she immediately rejected Walter's unreasonable request.
I'm afraid that you have thought me a bigger fool than I am.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't you? I am divorcing you for adultery. I'm naming Charles Townsend as your lover.
When Kitty learned her affair had been exposed, she showed no remorse, no shame, and even had the audacity to ask Walter to bless her relationship with her lover. Walter couldn't believe his wife was foolish enough to mistake a fleeting affair for true love. So, to make her realize the harsh truth, Walter proposed a cruel deal. If Charles divorced his wife immediately and married Kitty, Walter would agree to the divorce and never interfere. But if Charles refused, Kitty would have to leave with him. Confident, Kitty hurried to find Charles, convinced he would choose her without hesitation. Yet she never expected that their so-called love was nothing but a momentary illusion, already vanished like smoke.
You know, darling, whatever happens, we must try to keep Dorothy out of it.
What do you mean?
I know, Dorothy, nothing in the world would induce her to divorce me. Any idea of the importance of my station? If I were...
Only now did Kitty awaken to her own foolishness. All her sweet fantasies shattered. She had no choice but to face reality, and reluctantly agreed to her husband's demand. But even so, Walter's heart remained filled with anger and disappointment over her betrayal. The journey that should have taken just 2.5 days by water, Walter deliberately chose to travel by treacherous mountain roads instead. The stifling heat made Kitty restless, while the muddy paths turned every step into torture. Yet what truly terrified her wasn't the harsh road, but the countless bodies of cholera victims they passed along the way. Peering through the window slats, an unspeakable fear silently devoured her heart. After 2.5 weeks of grueling travel, they finally arrived. Eagerly rushing inside, Kitty was stunned by the scene before her. The house was in utter chaos, the furniture broken and unusable. Dust filled the air, debris covered every corner, suffocating her. Even in the bedroom, a terrifying doll left by the previous occupants seemed to mock her.
Will you touch that, some of you? You've died in that bed.
As night fell, Walter reminded Kitty that if she was truly afraid, he could give her a vaccine. But perhaps to spite him, Kitty stubbornly insisted she needed no such care, coldly asking what would happen if she caught cholera.
No, all the fluid goes out of you in the first 36 hours. You die of dehydration, actually. So it's messy, very painful.
That night was destined to be sleepless. The wails of lost souls seemed to echo endlessly in her ears. Though she feigned indifference, the terror of cholera had already taken root deep within her. The next morning, Kitty stepped outside and saw Walter in a heated discussion with a local military officer. To ensure Kitty's safety and the security of their base, Walter arranged for a soldier to guard the premises, but Kitty could see through this thinly veiled surveillance. Soon after, Walter departed with the officer to investigate the cholera outbreak. On their way, Walter's attention was drawn to villagers drawing water from a well. His experience in bacteriology told him this water source might hold critical clues.
不好，不喝. Do you understand? 明白吗?
Yes, I understand, Dr. Fane. I received my military training in Moscow. If you don't mind English, I can speak Russian.
English will be fine, thank you.
They proceeded to the heart of the cholera clinic, where the air was thick with pain and despair. Countless villagers writhed in agony, tormented by the disease. Even though Walter had mentally prepared himself, witnessing such suffering firsthand stirred emotions he couldn't suppress. Meanwhile, Kitty sat alone in the empty, decaying house. The unbearable environment and constant threat of infection suffocated her. Her mind drifted once again to her lover, Charles, imagining he might rescue her from this hopeless place. But reality was far more cruel. Grasping at a fragile thread of hope, she sought out the local adjutant, Waddington. Kitty offered him her cherished record, asking him to help send a letter, a dreamlike plea for rescue. When Waddington took the letter from Kitty, his eyes were immediately drawn to Charles's name. It turned out that Waddington had crossed paths with Charles before, and he bluntly revealed that Walter was infamous for his womanizing, adding that Charles had once boasted that women who fell for him so easily were nothing but cheap and insignificant. Waddington's words cut through Kitty's fragile heart like a knife. She forced a bitter smile, embarrassed, and was about to leave with her letter. But just as she turned, Waddington called out to her again.
The letter.
Right. Yes, it suddenly occurred to me that Friday's much too late.
When Kitty returned home, her mind was in complete disarray. In a fit of anger, she tore apart the heartfelt letter and tossed aside the pendant Charles had once given her. The last shred of her fantasy about her lover was now completely destroyed. She wanted to repair her broken relationship with Walter, to restore their past intimacy. But what she received in return was nothing but cold indifference. Though they lived under the same roof, a suffocating silence filled the room, as if an invisible wall had risen between them. At that moment, a servant brought over a bowl of vegetable salad, but since the vegetables weren't properly cooked, there was a risk of cholera infection. Walter immediately ordered the servant to take it away, yet Kitty, defiant, insisted on keeping the salad and pulled it close, eating it with a provocative glare. This was not just an act of rebellion against Walter's coldness, but also a desperate outlet for her inner frustration and struggle. Walter, consumed by his own emotions, snatched the salad in a petty show of defiance and ate it himself, despite the risk. Both were trapped in their own way of expressing dissatisfaction, locked in a silent battle. The weight of Charles's cold abandonment and Walter's relentless indifference crushed Kitty, leaving her emotionally drained, suffocated by the pain. In a moment of despair, she decided to leave it all behind. But as soon as she stepped outside, she was confronted by the lifeless bodies of villagers who had succumbed to cholera. Drawn by a strange compulsion, she slowly approached, as if only by leaving this world could she find true release. Fortunately, Waddington appeared just in time, preventing a tragedy. Meanwhile, Walter poured all his anger toward Kitty into his research. Through relentless effort, the source of the cholera outbreak gradually became clear. As Walter had suspected, the village well had been contaminated. To prevent the epidemic from worsening, he had no choice but to seal off the village's only water source. However, this decision forced villagers to fetch water from a source 4 kilometers away. Though it was a necessary measure to control the outbreak, the villagers couldn't understand Walter's actions and even cursed him to his face. But even after controlling the immediate water problem, the cholera crisis refused to subside. Walter grew more and more frustrated, and his assistant suggested they have a drink to release some of the pressure. As night fell, thick and heavy as ink, Walter returned home, swaying from intoxication. And for the first time in days, he showed Kitty a rare glimpse of genuine concern. But just as Kitty spoke, Walter collapsed heavily to the ground. Perhaps only under the influence of alcohol could he finally reveal the emotions he had buried deep within. The next morning, Kitty followed her husband's request and went to the convent. Yet as she stepped into the village, she was met with a scene of utter devastation. The aftermath of the cholera outbreak laid bare. There was no bustling cityscape here, only the withered exhaustion of the countryside overwhelmed by disease and streets filled with groups of orphans. The convent had become their only refuge. As Kitty entered, she immediately felt the unique tranquility and serenity of the place. The Mother Superior told Kitty that this peace was all thanks to her husband. Since Dr. Walter arrived, he had dedicated himself to treating the sick, working tirelessly with the local medical team, sacrificing his own rest for their sake. Kitty followed the Mother Superior as she toured the convent, seeing children learning the art of weaving, their innocent songs filling the air of the music room. In that moment, the convent seemed to shed the shadow of calm. Kitty was deeply moved, realizing that what her husband had done was not only brave, but a true act of selfless devotion. As Kitty thought back to her past foolishness and the recent clashes with her husband, a deep, indescribable ache surged in her heart, as if her remorse and self-blame were about to drown her. That evening, she prepared dinner early, quietly waiting for Walter to return. But Walter never came over for dinner. Worried, Kitty brought the dinner to his study, only to find him collapsed in exhaustion at his desk. Hearing her footsteps, Walter stirred from his sleep. Yet even as Kitty gently showed her care, Walter remained distant, lost in his own thoughts, offering no warmth in return. His cold indifference felt like an impenetrable barrier, as if this silent storm between them would never pass. But Kitty refused to give up. Though she knew her betrayal had inflicted a deep wound on her husband, she still voiced her inner struggle, anxiety, and despair.
Do you absolutely despise me?
No, I despise myself
Why?
for allowing myself to love you once.
Walter had once loved her so deeply, precisely why her betrayal had become his greatest pain. Yet even so, he couldn't bear to truly let her go. Outside the door, Kitty's soft sobs echoed, each tear silently tearing through Walter's heart. That pain made him involuntarily recall the love and tenderness once hidden deep in the passage of time. Even the sky seemed to weep for them. As the night rain washed away her despair, Kitty realized she couldn't let herself fall into ruin. The next day, she returned to the convent. Though the Mother Superior hesitated to burden her with work, Kitty insisted on staying. She soon found herself in the nursery, changing diapers for the orphaned children. But faced with the barrier of language, her anxious heart struggled to find its place. Still, she was determined to overcome these obstacles, offering what little help she could. Stepping outside to fetch hot water for the children, she accidentally bumped into Walter. He was about to scold her for acting on her own, but as he watched her walk away, Walter suddenly understood. Kitty's choice wasn't a whim. She was trying to stand beside him, helping to battle this crisis. In quiet moments, Kitty would play boring melodies for the children. The gentle music floated through the convent, adding a splash of color to their otherwise monotonous days. Walter, passing by, couldn't help but stop, listening to the melody Kitty played, each note gently stirring his heartstrings, drawing him into this rare moment of peace. Memories of their sweet beginnings resurfaced, lingering in his mind. As the days passed, something subtle began to shift between them. A quiet understanding, a forgotten sense of harmony began to reawaken. Even when they spoke of painful memories, there was no longer blame or distance, only a shared smile of forgiveness and release.
Why didn't you break down that door when you knew I was in there with Charlie? I'd have at least tried to thrash him.
It wasn't worth it. Or maybe I'm just too proud to fight.
I don't know about that.
Through Walter's relentless investigation, he finally uncovered the true reason why cholera continued to spread. It was the villagers themselves who had buried their deceased loved ones too close to the water source, their corpses contaminating the supply. When Walter proposed relocating the bodies to stop the outbreak, the villagers fiercely opposed him. To them, this sacred ground near the water was untouchable. But Walter, alongside the local military officer, pressed on with the relocation, sealing off the downstream water supply. This essential measure, however, clashed with the villagers' deep-rooted traditions. The once peaceful water source disturbed, villagers flooded the streets in protest. Their anger soon turned toward Kitty. As she hurried home, a furious mob surrounded her, shoving her violently to the ground. Before she could even register the pain in her knees, the advancing villagers filled her with unprecedented fear. No matter how desperately she tried to escape, the villagers, familiar with the terrain, still cornered her with no way out. Trapped, unable to communicate, Kitty felt herself sinking into a hopeless abyss. But just as the villagers closed in, Walter appeared, like a beam of light cutting through the darkness, shielding her from their rage. Soldiers followed swiftly, dispersing the crowd and pulling them out of danger. From that moment on, their bond grew even stronger, as the pain and shadows of the past were completely dissolved by mutual understanding and care. They floated on a bamboo raft, drifting through the scenic beauty of the lake and mountains, gently gliding across the calm water. In that moment, their hearts seemed to beat in perfect harmony. The lake reflected their deep, enduring affection, and that sense of peace and comfort quietly intertwined their hearts as one. It was then that Kitty saw Walter using a windmill system to solve the village's water crisis. By harnessing the elevation and the natural flow of uncontaminated upstream water, he redirected clean water into every household. Yet fate is always full of cruel irony. That day, as always, Kitty was leading the children in singing and dancing, their laughter echoing through every corner of the convent. Yet suddenly, an overwhelming dizziness struck her mind, rendering her unconscious. When she awoke, the Mother Superior delivered shocking news.
Is it possible you are with child?
She couldn't believe what she was hearing.
No. Oh, yes. No. Yes.
Just when she and Walter had begun to mend their fragile relationship, this unexpected news threw her into turmoil. She couldn't even be certain who the child's father was. When Walter arrived after hearing the news, Kitty's expression was lost in a daze. She feared this would be the final blow to their relationship. But Walter's love was deep and forgiving, embracing all of her past mistakes and sharp edges. Perhaps true love is when, in each other's most vulnerable moments, we can let go of past wounds without hesitation and embrace each other's flaws and mistakes with forgiveness. At this moment, love is no longer about blind acceptance, but about healing each other's scars and finding redemption together. As Walter's water project neared completion, fresh, clean water finally gushed through the pipes. The villagers' words of praise echoed in Walter's ears. But before he could even enjoy a moment of satisfaction, waves of refugees surged in from downstream. Without prior containment, cholera erupted once more. For safety, Kitty and the children had to take refuge within the convent. At dawn, Walter stepped into the wounded village once again. With the outbreak worsening, he came to the convent, gave Kitty a heartfelt kiss, and marched back into the heart of the cholera front lines. From that moment, Kitty waited for days without news. Until one evening, Waddington came with devastating news. Walter had contracted cholera. The world seemed to collapse around Kitty. All her hopes and reasons shattered in an instant. Without hesitation, she ran into the night, every step driven by desperation and resolve. No matter how many tried to stop her, Kitty pushed through, determined to reach her husband's side. Seeing Kitty arrive, Walter's will to survive surged once more. But despite his efforts to fight the disease, the plague had already taken root, tormenting him beyond endurance. In his final moments, Walter confessed the guilt he had carried deep within.
There's nothing to forgive.
And in Kitty's embrace, Walter passed away. Even in death, his eyes remained open, as if filled with regret for the promise he could no longer fulfill. After laying him to rest, Kitty returned to their now empty home. When she saw her husband's familiar microscope and the notes he had left behind, waves of past love and memories surged through her heart. All the dreams they once had for the future quietly faded, like fragile illusions with her tears, leaving behind nothing but an unreachable emptiness. As the cholera epidemic finally subsided, Kitty left that place behind, carrying Walter's memory and her boundless longing with her. Years passed like fleeting shadows. One day, Kitty and her child visited the flower shop she and Walter had frequented many times before. As she bought a bouquet of flowers and was about to leave, she happened to run into Charles. He greeted Kitty and her child, to which she responded with calm composure, a faint, distant smile on her lips. There wasn't the slightest ripple in her eyes. Facing the man she had once loved, her heart no longer stirred with the pure infatuation of youth. After a brief exchange, Kitty turned to leave with her child.
I'm going to be in London for the next 3 weeks. Perhaps we could...
Goodbye, Mr. Townsend.
Goodbye, Mrs. Faith.
Charles made no move to stop her, knowing well that the woman before him was no longer the naive girl of years past. The Painted Veil is more than just a love story. It is a profound reflection on life, choices, and redemption. From this, we learn that love is rarely flawless. It is often riddled with hardships and trials, but it is precisely these struggles that make it real, that strike the deepest chords in our hearts. Through life's storms, we come to see each other's vulnerabilities and strengths. In countless moments of conflict and compromise, we gradually understand what true love really means. When the delicate, intricate veil is finally lifted, what remains is a bond tempered by time, a selfless devotion, a silent, enduring tenderness. The true meaning of love is not measured by how long we possess it, but by how it shapes our souls, teaching us how to love and care, even as the years slip by.